In 1970-1980, the GAZ-66 was the main light off-road truck of the Soviet Army. It was launched into mass production in 1964, and by the mid-1970s it already looked like one. The main customer, that is, the Soviet Ministry of Defense, proposed the release of the GAZ-66. The Gorky Automobile Plant developed a new truck of the same class, enlarged the cab, made it easier for the driver and passenger to enter, and also reconfigured the controls. In addition, it is required to increase the carrying capacity of the chassis and the traction force on the hook, to make the floor of the platform even, raising it above the rear fenders with wheels. The gasoline engine was replaced by a diesel one. Part of the new light off-road trucks was going to be produced with a cab protected from small arms fire. The GAZ-66 successor received the GAZ-3301 cargo. Its design began in 1980, and in 1981 the first two prototypes were manufactured. Further, until 1987, the Gorky Automobile Plant produced two more series of prototypes of the GAZ-3301. The lead designer of the GAZ-3301 was Shadrin, whose engine was developed under the leadership of Parkhomenko. The overall project management was carried out by the chief designer of trucks of the Gorky Automobile Plant, Buchusov. The GAZ-3301 cabin was made larger, warmer and moved forward, thereby increasing the doorway, increasing the number of door reviews. In part of the experimental machines, the cabin was protected from the blast wave and small arms fire. Armored glass was used within certain limits. The thickness of the armored glass is 16 mm. The wheelbase of the GAZ-3301 remained the same as that of the GAZ-66, but the carrying capacity increased by half a ton. For the new truck, it began to be 2.5 tons. The curb weight also increased by a fraction of the body weight. Therefore, a new frame was developed for the GAZ-3301. The cross-section of the bridge beams was increased, and the heat treatment of the main parts was improved. The springs have become longer, instead of a rubber seal for fingerprints. The carrying capacity of the car could have been increased even more, but its growth was held back by the use of differentials of increased justification in wheel gears. These differentials automatically shifted up to 40% of torque with a toe wheel on a wheel that displayed traction. The 4-speed gearbox used on the GAZ-66 gave way to a 5-speed, fully synchronized one. GAZ-3301 received a new inline 6-cylinder diesel engine with large cooling, 6 liters and 133 HP. This diesel engine, suspension and gearbox were developed not only for the GAZ-3301, but also for the promising rear-wheel drive truck GAZ-4301 for local use. The GAZ-3301 onboard unit was made without wheel arches, which is why it had to be installed higher. Front drive axle, reduction gear in the transfer case and excitation winch by means of an electro-pneumatic drive. Therefore, in the cabin of the new car, the old levers gave way to a toggle switch on the dashboard. The more powerful GAZ-3301 even wanted to fit tires with a universal tread frequency, which would increase its frequency and handling when driving on asphalt roads. But with such tires, the car's traction has decreased, so they still decided to use tires with developed lugs. As those tires, new tires Key 113 with a noticeable tread were chosen, which are found on cars of the middle class SIL 131. In 1987, the GAZ-3301 met the test and was recommended for mass production. But the Gorky Automobile Plant itself did not have the funds to launch mass production, and the Ministry of Defense, whose budget was loaded with numerous federal programs, also refused to allocate money. In the end, it was decided to leave the GAZ-66 on the conveyor, but include its modernization. Such a modernized modification was called GAZ-6611. It went into production in 1985. From the GAZ-3301, the modernized GAZ-6601 got a reinforced transfer case with more natural gearing and a handbrake that was perfect in design. And 10 years later, in 1995, the modernized car is equipped with a diesel engine from the GAZ-3301, but in a 4-cylinder version. A modification of a car with a turbocharged engine received the designation GAZ-6640, and without a turbocharger, GAZ-6641. But they did not produce diesel GAZ-66 for long. They were removed from the assembly line in 1999, replaced by a more modern off-road truck of the same class. But not on the GAZ-3301, but on the GAZ-3308, called Sadco. In terms of frame, cab and hood, it was unified with the GAZ-3307 civilian rear-wheel drive truck already mass-produced by the Gorky Automobile Plant. And from the GAZ-6640, the new off-road vehicle got a transmission and a cargo platform. And 20 years later, in 2019, the GAZ-3308 Sadco was discontinued. Instead, a new model of the Sadco Next off-road light truck was launched into the series. But that is no longer the subject of this story.